If you remember, we were discussing about the profile directory structure.
Yeah.
I mean, this particular image, whatever you are seeing on the slide, it shows the DMGR directory structure from a Windows installation. But if you navigate, the app server or the DMGR profile on Linux, it will be pretty much the same. So you need to be aware of a few XML files, which we don't hand edit. When I say hand edit, right, you don't actually open in an editor and make changes. But sometimes if you run into configuration issues, let's say if you're managing a cluster and I mean, you feel that there is a configuration issue, like one of the nodes in the cluster is not picking up some changes, the application specific deployment changes or WebSphere specific configuration changes, like changing the port number from the console, it is not reflecting for that particular node. So you might be interested to see like what is going on in the backend. So those are the circumstances where you'll be just going through these files in a read-only mode and then confirm few things. Okay. And I mean, though many files are listed, these, I mean, whatever the scenario I just explained, right? Those will be like server.xml. You might be interested to take a look at it. I mean, even just for information, I mean, not only that you will have to see when you are having issues, but if you want to see what exactly this file contains, whatever you are making changes to the console, so these will be stored these in these XML files. Actually, all the server definitions, port information, the security settings in security.xml, your JDBC and your data source, provided information in the resource XMLs, all the WebSphere specific, Java environment variables in the variables.xml, performance monitoring, settings in the PMI config XML, your cluster specific changes or configuration settings in the HA manager service.xml. You don't, I mean, even personally, I have not touched a PMI config and HA manager service. I mean, it's very difficult to understand the schema, but frequently, I took a look at server XML, resource XML, and security XML. I mean, unless you are an expert, in making sure how to make these hand edits, okay, there are certain sequences to make sure if something is not reflecting. I mean, there are certain workaround to be followed, which is not even recommended by IBM. But once you, notice something is not synchronized from the DMGR, in the worst case, we'll try to do the hand edits and then we'll push the changes from DMGR to, the nodes. So,
Okay.
I mean, I'll tell you a very peculiar scenario where you might run into these issues. When DMGR is trying to contact that node and, that node agent process, right? Let's say it is running with a specific WebSphere user ID and group ID. And if your file system permissions have been changed since the installation, okay, that you have done, and there is no way that, node agent will be able to edit these files. I mean, if the right permission is revoked or someone changed the settings. So, I mean, in those cases, right, you'll have to perform the operations to make sure those files get the appropriate permissions rather than making the changes, at the file level. So you'll have to fix it at the, you'll have to consider that environmental issue as the issue for the WebSphere installation as such, not very specific to these files. But you will actually see the
So
files,
we
okay,
will.
why, yeah.
So are you saying that we will install it as a root, ROT root user, and then we decided that you remember we use I told you we use AppServe. So AppServe we will use, and then we after installing, if we'll change from root to AppServe, then we'll not be able to change these files. That's what you're
No.
saying.
That scenario, whatever you are saying, right? Even I have not tried, doing any WebSphere installations from root and then switching that installation to a different user. Okay. If
Yeah.
if you have decided to perform the non-root installation, you will have to have that in the plan and then start the installation manager tool itself from the non-root user mode, which is like user inst script.
Okay.
Okay. Because that will make sure whatever the appropriate permissions needed for that user account, WebSphere installation itself will give you that actually, because we don't know, I mean, which file, it is going to be only read-only mode, right? So we cannot
Yeah.
manipulate by changing the users for the entire file system. I mean, being a Linux admin or root user. So that is not recommended.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, if something has been changed, though you have installed the files, the WebSphere setup using the non-root user, I mean, there are changes where, I mean, if, without knowing your, I mean, without even letting you know, if some Unix admins have changed something, then you will have these synchronization issues from the DMGR, or sometimes the WebSphere process itself, doesn't come up. So you will have these kind of issues. So from the directory structure, I mean, you'll have to navigate to, I mean, it'll not be a direct indicator wherever you are referring through. I mean, you might get it in the logs if the certain, binary itself is not able to start the process. If it's not able to create logs, so you'll actually get it. I mean, you'll get a permission denied error. But certain cases where these XML files don't take changes, I mean, WebSphere doesn't report very smartly that it is not able to edit these files. So you'll have to navigate, back and forth and find out, what I mean, has been changed. Since
And what is the difference between the resource.xml of DMGR cell and inside it we have server folder?
correct. So I'll tell you the differences between these resources when it comes to scoping. In one-liner, right? We can actually define the resources at different level of scopes. Okay, you can actually
Okay.
define DMGR to be aware of these resources, and all the nodes can actually use the resources defined at the DMGR level, and then it can be used. It can
Okay.
implement that. Okay, for their own
It
application.
is okay. These files are scope wise. That's
Scope
what you
wise.
are trying
Yeah.
to
Yes.
say.
So
Okay.
that's why you
Okay.
see resources at node level, resources at cell level, resources at server level, which is the recommended configuration actually. Okay. So
Okay.
if you have a
Okay.
cluster, I mean, it is even recommended to define these resources at the cluster level, because you don't have to, let's say if you have 5 different nodes or 4 different cluster members, you don't have to define the JDBC settings, for every node. Okay, so you can define it at the
Mhm.
cluster level, I mean, which is again recommended. And if you don't have a cluster, I would recommend you to go with the server level actually, the JVM specific changes, not even at the cell level or the node level. Okay, so that's why you see
Okay.
multiple files, from different, scopes. Okay,
Okay.
so
To
any other?
disable the admin security, we will go inside the DMVR cell that security.xml, right?
Well, I mean, that's one of the workarounds I would say, editing that file and killing the process or something. I mean, just to make sure you revert the security changes. Yeah, that's one of the scenarios where you do that, but you need to have, because let me tell you the reason actually, right? If you make the edit in the security.xml, you need to stop the process, okay, to make sure that changes are picked up. But for you to stop the process, if the security is enabled before, you need to have the password. So that scenario will be helpful only if the admin password is forgotten or lost.
Okay.
Okay.
But
Because
if the
if you,
password is forgotten, how I will enter the password?
that's what. So you cannot enter the password and systematically bring down the processes. So you'll have to kill the process with the help of the Unix admin.
Okay. Okay.
Got it?
Okay. Okay.
And that is not recommended also, because we'll have to make a multiple synchronization, and we'll have to make changes on the cell level, and whatever the nodes which have got these files, we'll have to restart every server actually to get
So
those
you
nodes
are
out of
saying
security.
if I don't have the password, I know the process. I'll go from Unix machine and then I'll kill the process and then I'll do the required changes under the DMGS cell level security of XML. I'll disable the security from there and and then um then I'll restart it.
You will restart it. I mean, that's a
But
process at the high
DMGR will
level.
not ask me the part.
No, no, if you kill it, okay, even though the security is enabled before you change something, I mean, it doesn't bother about whether the security is enabled, because you are actually killing the process. Okay, not the systematic way of
Okay.
bringing down. But let's say you have a very
So
big
next
cell.
time if you'll bring up the DMGR, then
No,
for the
starting the
console it will
server
not
in the
ask me the
WebSphere
password.
environment. Okay, starting anyone can start.
Okay.
See, starting is a good operation, right? I mean, when you compare,
Yeah.
the operation of bringing down something, right?
Yeah.
So
Because
if you
you
bring,
will be showing that also.
That is not part of the agenda to actually, disable the security from the security XML. No, I'll tell you from the GUI mode, because that recommendation is not even given by IBM to, to edit the files and, kill the process and do it. Let's see. I mean,
Usually
just put
people
it in
do from WS admin, I guess.
no, we'll do it from the console itself. I mean.
Okay.